Hmm? Plato saying ideal is real. Plato epistemology, not bad. Okay, so if you remember what I was saying about Plato, I told you that we will try to understand his epistemology, and as a part of that, we will be dealing with his idea that the ideal is the real. Now, if you are if you are looking at epistemologies of Plato, first let me explain what epistemology is. Okay, because epistemology has uh, different meanings. Though it has one meaning, it is used differently by different people. Epistemology is a Greek word, and the root of this Greek word is episteme, 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 and episteme is what should I say? Uh, Episteme is a framework. It is a framework that of understanding, and that particular framework of understanding should be able to explain the truth. Okay, the if you read, say, somebody like John Macquarie. John Macquarie will say something like epistemology is nothing but the pursuit of knowledge. Now, pursuit of knowledge is not wrong, definitely not wrong. But what you must remember is that pursuit of knowledge can be of different kinds. Okay. Now, what Plato is trying to pursue through his epistemology is fundamental knowledge. Now, when you're talking about fundamental knowledge, the question that comes up is, what is fundamental knowledge? Why are we calling it fundamental knowledge? Fundamental knowledge is that knowledge upon which all other forms of knowledge sit. That is how you have to understand fundamental knowledge. Fundamental knowledge is that knowledge upon which all other forms of knowledge sit. This is also called the truth in philosophical terms. This truth is something that has to be written with a capital T. It is not something that you write with a small t. When you write with a small t, then basically what happens is that what should I say? Um, Sorry, people are still coming. Yeah, getting distracted. Yeah. So truth, when you write with a capital T, it means something like the source of everything in this world. Okay? When you say the source of everything in this world, what we are actually saying is that truth is what basically explains what the world is to us. That is the notion of truth when it is written with a capital T. If you write it with a small t, it is the opposite of a lie, L-I-E, lie. Or it can also be something which is the opposite of wrong. Okay, it can also be opposite of a wrong, but it is usually the opposite of lie. But when you write it with a capital T, then you are looking at that particular thing which makes this world what it is. Now, if you're looking at Plato, Plato is a traditional philosopher. And traditional philosophers have always tried to seek the truth. It's not just Plato who seeks the truth. Socrates tried to seek the truth. And in Indian tradition, the Buddha is a shining example of seeking truth. He wanted to understand what drives the world. And in Buddha, you find that the truth, according to him, is dukkha. Dukkha is that which is to be understood as sorrow. For him, what drives this world, the most fundamental form of knowledge is the knowledge that it is sorrow that drives this world. People in this world experience sorrow. That is their primary experience. There might be other experiences as well, but this is the most primary of all experiences. Plato is doing something similar, not doing exactly what Buddha is doing. Plato is trying to understand the purpose of the world. Okay? Why is the world here? Now, I had spoken to you about various other schools. I had spoken to you about the Milesian school. I had spoken to you about the Eleatic school. I had spoken to you about the Athenian school and the Hellenistic school. I don't want to take too much time on the Milesians. I just want to tell you one thing. The Milesians were pioneers in their own right. Now, when you say that the Milesians were pioneers, what is that pioneer that we are looking at? Previously, in ancient Greece, like in all ancient civilizations, explanation of phenomena was done through mythologies. Now, if you look at the explanation of uh, that is done through mythology, then obviously they are like stories, isn't it? So, are they adequate? Are they correct at all? Obviously, they are not. They are not correct. What bothered one of the Milesian philosophers, Thales, was that the earth was resting on, it was a flat disk, and it was resting on the shoulders of Atlas. Now, please remember that the Greeks had a pretty vast pantheon of gods. The head god of the Greeks is Zeus, Zeus, not Zeus, but Zeus, and Apollo, Dionysius, and similarly Atlas. Now, all these gods that the Greeks prayed to were anthropomorphic. Anthropomorphic is that which looks like a human being. An anthrope, Anthrope, an anthrope is a human being. Morphology is the external character, sorry, or external features of something. That's morphology. If you're going to talk about science, the internal features are those which should be called anatomy. Okay, so if we are talking about anthropomorphic, what we are basically saying is that the Greeks portrayed gods in the human form. That is pretty common. Even most of our gods are basically in the human form, though they are not necessarily in the pure human form. If you want to depict Vishnu, then he'll have 4 arms. You want to depict uh, Brahma. Brahma has 3 or 4 heads, and you have uh, Durga, who has 6 or 8 arms, 10 arms. So you see, these are, while they are anthropomorphic, they are distortions. With the Greeks and later the Romans, the gods are not distortions. Distortions don't exist there. Right. Uh, Distortions don't exist there. And what we are looking at is somebody who's exactly like a human being. Somebody who's exactly like a human being. That is what we are looking at. So if you take into consideration uh, Atlas, Atlas also was anthropomorphic, and he was carrying this particular disc called Earth on his shoulders. Now, Thales for one was not satisfied with the answer given by mythologies. Because please remember, myths are myths because of the fact that they are not true. If they are true, then we'll call them truths. Otherwise, myths are not, otherwise, why will we call them myths? Myth is something, sometimes, if you take the Marxist definition of it, Marx basically says mythologies represent the childhood of the human civilization. You know, we tell stories to small children which are not realistic, which are unreal. We don't tell them stories which are real. Okay. And so he says mythologies represent this unrealistic phase of the human civilization, which is like a childhood. That is the uh, definition Marx gives. But later on, what happened, you will see, is that uh, because of people like Roland, Barthes, and people like Claude Levi-Strauss. Claude Levi-Strauss is a French anthropologist. He gave a different definition to mythology. His spelling, you can, if you want to know, is Claude. It's not pronounced cloud like I have been doing it. I was doing it so that you know that it is Clau. It is Claude Levi-Strauss. Uh, Claude Levi-Strauss is of German origin, but he lived in France, and therefore people will call him a French anthropologist. He has a theory of mythologies. He says that while choosing surnames in Europe, if there was somebody great in your family, then you made that name your surname. Okay. So if you're, say, looking at the children of an actress like Doris Day, then they'll make Doris their surname because Doris Day is such a famous actress. Okay, so you want to prove that you come from a great lineage. That's why you do it. But this for him is also trickery. It is trickery because you choose one parent, unless, of course, you have two parents who are both extremely accomplished in whatever they do. Unless you do that, you will choose to project yourself as the progeny of one parent. For example, if you look at, uh, say, this Telugu actor Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna, who's Nagarjuna, if you ask? You'll say he is the son of Akkineni Nageshwar Rao. Nagarjuna Akkineni is the son of Akkineni Nageshwar Rao. Where is the mother? If you say whose son is he, then you should also be giving the name of the mother. One parent cannot produce a child, man or woman. One parent cannot produce a child, right? So I was shocked the other day that people didn't know Indira Gandhi's husband was Feroz Shah Gandhi. I was really shocked. And people didn't even know that she's not a Gandhi. Okay, but I'm digressing. I don't want to start digressing too much into this. So people will draw their lineage from one person who's famous. So since Nageshwar Rao was a famous actor, Nagarjuna, his son Naga Chaitanya, his mother is not Amala, so he won't say Amala. Maybe Nagarjuna's second son, who's the son of Nagarjuna and Amala, he seems to have dropped like a big boulder in water and sunk. They tried making movies with him. He was a disaster. So I think the parents have disowned him, so there is no question of you know two people, these people saying this is our son. I think they have disowned him. Anyway, my stupid jokes apart, this, according to Claude Levi-Strauss, is a certain form of mythology where you emphasize your lineage on one parent only and not talk about the other parent, because one parent is well known and famous. By emphasizing on that parent, you also will try to get that glory rubbed onto yourself. Roland Barthes has a slightly more elaborate, and he has a slightly more complex theory of what is a myth. Now, the thing with Roland Barthes is that he was somebody who was against. Roland Barthes is actually written Roland. Roland, it is again Frenchman. Roland is Roland. Barthes is Barthes. Roland Barthes, for some strange reason, was obsessed with the actress, Hollywood actress, Greta Garbo. He was obsessed with Greta Garbo. And Greta Garbo was actually a brand ambassador for some brand of wine. If I am not mistaken, the brand of wine was Moet, Moet, Moet. That was the brand of wine. There were a number of commercials, advertisements in newspapers, in television, where Greta Garbo was seen drinking Moët champagne uh, out of a champagne glass. Now, this, according to Roland Barthes, is the building of a mythology. Because what Roland Barthes does is that first and foremost, he says capitalism needs something to sell. You know, if you put your Telugu TV channels on, or why Telugu TV, even Hindi TV channels on, actors and actresses are endorsing various different products. That is the way of capitalism. Why? Because so and so uses this, I should also use that. It has some value. And what would you do if you're Aston Martin, for example? It was pure chance that in the novels about James Bond, the uh, car chosen was an Aston Martin, Aston Martin. Okay, it was just chance. That's what the writer thought could be a car. It was a sporty car, a sports car. Now, Aston Martin started advertising it as the car that James Bond drives. Now, James Bond himself is not real. And you are advertising that James Bond drives an Aston Martin, so buy one. And people were buying one. And at some point, BMW felt Aston Martin was getting cheap publicity. It was getting cheap publicity because Ian Fleming, who wrote the novels, wrote about Aston Martin, and Aston Martin was using that to leverage that Bond drives this car. So they approached the franchise that makes Bond films and said, when Pierce Brosnan became James Bond, a dashing James Bond. Not all people who played James Bond were great. Pierce Brosnan was definitely one of the absolutely dashing James Bonds. And though my own preferences, first preference is Sean Connery. Uh, if you see what happened, BMW paid money to the franchise that was making these films and made James Bond drive BMW cars in films, in Bond films. So BMW for a while became a car that James Bond was driving. Unfortunately, that backfired. Uh, that's another story. I'm not going to go into that right now. But what I want to tell you is that capitalism will try to associate a product, will try to associate a product with someone and sell it, increase its sales, or position it as luxury. Okay. If you want to, for instance, in America, for many years, General Motors used Robert Redford, the Hollywood actor, to sell Cadillac cars. Cadillac cars are the ones that are used by great actors like Robert Redford. So if Robert Redford uses a Cadillac, then I should also use a Cadillac. That was the logic, and it worked. It worked pretty well. Now, Roland Barthes, since he was obsessed with Greta Garbo, picked up Moe's wine, and he didn't just say, see, Greta Garbo is the celebrity, and she's advertising or endorsing this brand of wine called Moes. So he said, if you look at, he did research and found out that among all the alcoholic beverages, the cheapest beverage to make was wine. It was the most inexpensive to make wine. Beverages like whiskey, those are much more expensive because whiskey, in order to get that particular color, I don't know if you know this, alcohol is white in color. So if I sell you alcohol, it's white. Now, whiskey doesn't have a white color. Whiskey has that color of a sunny day in England, not in India. In India, it would be whiter than white if it's a sunny day. Out there, it has that glow. It's a very expensive drink to make. Despite that, people were not buying whiskey. People were drinking champagne. And and if you look at Roland Barthes, he did a complete analysis and said a cheap alcoholic drink like wine and champagne. Champagne is a particular kind of wine. It comes from the uh, province in France called Campania. So he said this cheap drink has been put forward as a connoisseur's drink by Greta Garbo. Then he went and attacked Greta Garbo. He said, what does Greta Garbo know about anything? Okay, let's not go ahead into all that. But what he was saying is that a mythology was being created, an untruth here. Mythology here became an untruth because he said people were basically uh, being conned into believing that the cheapest form of liquor is some kind of a connoisseur's drink. So that, he says, is mythology. So please remember, I didn't waste your time trying to tell you these stories. Marx saw it as childhood of man. Levi Strauss, Claude Levi Strauss saw it as the, what should we say, the deliberate attempt to draw one's attention to one's parent only. And Roland Barthes, of course, made a wonderful contribution to the understanding of the whole idea of capitalism and advertising in capitalism, where you can actually project a cheap alcoholic beverage as a connoisseur's drink. So Roland Barthes actually should have got some kind of a prize for that, because otherwise people did not even know. People did not even know that wine is the cheapest to make and it's the quickest to make. Whiskey, of late, it has also become a connoisseur's drink. So you will find on the bottle, matured for 18 years, if a Glenlivet, okay, or matured for 12 years. Or if it's Johnny Walker, then you'll say it's a blended whiskey and is blended from several breweries, whatever. So they sell like that now. But it is a great achievement of Roland Barthes, where he was able to show how myths can get built, not can get built, how myths are built. Okay, how myths are built, that is what he showed. Now, Thales in ancient Greece, in the province of Miletus, Miletos, also thought that the explanations offered by mythologies were untruths. They were falsities, they were wrong, and therefore he said real knowledge, okay, real knowledge, if you're going to talk about that, then it has to unravel the truth. That is what he said. Truth here with a capital T. Okay, the primary thing. It has to unravel the real truth. So he went out. When I say went out, didn't go out. He went about. Yeah, that's a better word. He went about looking for what he called a primary substance. A primary substance, as in, where did this world come from? Which is that substance from which all other substances come from? Like Buddha didn't talk about a substance. Buddha talked about an emotion. His idea was suffering, emotion. All our other emotions, all our actions came out of this primary truth, which is dukkha. Not only do these things come out of dukkha, they also further contribute to dukkha. Acquisitiveness, for instance, okay, that is what uh, Buddha talks about. You think that if you acquire more and more things for your comfort, you're wrong. Because the more things you acquire, the more grief they cause you, which is very true. I have experienced it myself. Okay. I bought a lot of CDs, very rare CDs. Somebody comes, takes that CD, walks off from my house, doesn't bother to return it. And at, on some day, when I am trying to listen to that CD, then on that particular day, I don't find the CD. I am extremely unhappy. I am put off. I am angry. All these negative things happen once these acquisitiveness comes in. So, which is very true. If you're watching Netflix and your TV conks out, you feel very bad. Oh God, it's my TV. I can't watch Netflix today or tomorrow. I can't watch Net. If your TV needs 3 or 4 days for repair, you'll say, oh, 4 days, no Netflix, right? So that is what the Buddha says. Dukkha is what everything comes out of and contributes the pursuit of all these things, materialistic comforts, the materialistic comforts that we go searching around for, they don't give us comfort, they give us grief. That is the truth according to the Buddha. So Thales is looking not at a primary emotion, not at a primary uh, mental state. He is looking at a substance that can be felt by the senses. That is what he is looking for. For him, truth is not something that you speak about. Truth is something that you should be able to feel. And for him, the primary substance was water. Okay? He believed that everything came out of water, which is actually quite great because modern science also now believes that all life originated in water. Then Anaximenes basically said the primary substance from which everything came out is air. Okay? And he says when air condenses, it becomes water. And when water condenses, it becomes earth. So for him, the primary substance is air. Okay, so these are naturalist explanations for naturalist phenomena. Naturalist explanations for naturalist phenomena. These are the earliest documented people anywhere in the world who talked about matter, okay, who talked about material as being the primary thing from which everything comes out. This changes with the Eleatic school. It changes with Parmenides. How does it change with Parmenides? Parmenides actually believes that there is nothing in this world which is moving. He says all movement is illusory. So he had an ongoing debate with another philosopher, Heraclitus. Heraclitus said you don't step into the same river twice. Why? Because the river is flowing. So you step into it, come out, wait for 2 minutes, step into the river again, come out, that's a different river. Parmenides says, no, nothing moves. If the river is moving, then it should go away. It should not always be there. Okay, that's what he says. If the river is moving, then it should go away. The river doesn't move. It's illusory that you think it moves, is what Parmenides says. And that which which it move, what that which appears as if it's moving is deceptive and illusory. This had a great impact on Plato. This particular idea had a great impact on Plato. So Plato's epistemology, this also had a great impact on Socrates. I told you that Parmenides met Socrates when Socrates was a very young man. And Socrates had the pleasure and privilege of talking to this great man. So Socrates and Plato both had this influence of Parmenides on them. And Plato's epistemology is ideal. Those are derived out of a thought process which is not exactly the same as Parmenides, but that which is inspired by Parmenides. So I'll stop here today. I wanted to do the evening class today actually, but unfortunately somebody is coming for another purpose. One of my PhD students wants to submit his thesis. So he doesn't have time. If he doesn't do it, then he'll have to pay some 15,000 fine or something. So we'll start the evening class tomorrow for the uh, other paper about the origin and persistence of institutions. Thank you. So see you tomorrow then. But I'll start the classes in the evening tomorrow. Tomorrow morning there'll be a class and we'll also have class in the evening. Thank you. Thank you.